Dramatically, the cases that the legal work, that's my own office, my personal work, has dramatically changed. Until 2003, because I'm an Iraqi lawyer and because I know the laws of the country, and I still do the survey on the laws of Iraq every year for a book which is published. It's a survey of the laws of the Middle East and the Arab world. Because of that, I used to have a number of cases relating to Iraqi laws. Sometimes the clients are not Iraqis. You have two English companies suing each other, but the main contractor was working in Iraq, so his contract is subject to Iraqi law. They subcontract with another English company, so the subcontract becomes subject to Iraqi law, and you have a dispute between two English companies, but the applicable law is in Iraqi law, and those people, instead of going to the courts in Iraq, they come to England, and the English court has to look at it in terms of Iraqi law. This is one kind of work. There were a number of cases where foreign interest, Americans, British, French, whatever, sometimes Arab clients, have cases against Iraqi institutions, departments, banks, ministries, what have you. There are cases where the Iraqis have claims against foreign companies. So I used to do a lot of work relating to Iraq until 2003. In 2003, the state of Iraq disappeared. So I had cases where the Iraqis had 100% secured right, but there is no Iraqi side. I can't act because the Iraqi side is no longer there. So I can't mention anybody in particular, but a state-owned entity in industry or agriculture or shipping or airlines or whatever, it has a case. It is owed money by, say, an Irish company, and it is guaranteed they will win. But that client disappears, so I can't pursue the matter any further. There are cases where I need somebody to talk to on the other end of the line by whatever means of communication. There isn't anybody there. Then the situation became so bad that even when I speak to somebody, he says to me, are you out of your mind? You think I worry about a court case we have in wherever in England? He said, look, my children are being this, and my wife and my house, and I have working relationships with a lot of Iraqi lawyers, colleagues of mine. They have all ceased to work. A lawyer who used to work in Baghdad, because he's a Shiite and he lives in Kazmia, so he cannot go to the court in Baghdad or the Karkh. If he's somebody who works in Karade, he cannot go to the court in Mansour because it's unsafe to travel, etc., etc. So my work, as far as Iraq is concerned, literally stopped by 100%. There's absolutely nothing. Then came the other side. There came the trials which the American inspired government in Iraq has held for the president of Iraq and his politicians. And to me, that was the biggest travesty of justice that I have seen in my life. At the end of the day, there is a court which is unlawful, it's not, legally it is not correct, because under the Geneva and Vienna Convention, occupying force cannot change the legislation of the country. But they did. Occupying force cannot set up special courts, but they did. They appointed judges who are not qualified to do the work. They have appointed judges who are neither independent nor impartial. Those people have arrested others who were put in prison for a long period of time. They were detained for a long period of time with zero access to legal advice, to their ordinary human rights, to see their family, to have clothes, to have food, whatever. There has never been, in my view, an abuse of the human rights in an institutional way as it has occurred in Iraq post 2003. And this one is 100% the fault of the United States of America. Every one of them, that is the President, Congress, the media, and the American public. I have written a main article on it in one of the legal books, but principally I was one of the advisors on the team. It's not, I couldn't assist them by going to the court or being there, and I wasn't looking for any recognition from anybody. I felt very strongly about the principles of it. I've never been a Ba'athist, I've never been a supporter of Saddam or the regime, and I have obviously my political views, but it wasn't that I was doing. What I was doing is I was actually disturbed that the profession that I have been in all of my life is being trampled all over and being really abused by the politicians. When one looks at the trials, so I was involved in a number of issues. I used to have meeting with the defense teams, both the one which were in the courts and the teams outside. I've had meetings with the International Bar Association over that one. We've discussed issues on the proceedings and what have you. I've been to various parts in Jordan, what have you, met with the legal team. There are fundamental flaws in that one. The court was not constitutionally set up. It even violates the constitution which the Americans have put for Iraq. The Americans, Noah Fieldman, who is the Jewish professor of Islamic law at New York University, is the one who wrote the constitution for Iraq. In that constitution it says that there shall be no special courts. Yet there is a special court, and that is the court which tried those people. The problem we have with that court is the way it was conducted on every level, from procedural side to the substantive issues. I, for instance, watched the trial of the jail. That trial would not pass and would not be accepted in any jurisdiction anywhere in the world because of the liability issue, which is lacking. That case, there was an attempt on the life of the head of state. People were arrested, tried, sentenced. Maybe they were abused, maybe the trials were not fair, maybe people have behaved in a bad way, maybe they tortured people. Some people might have been killed and died during the investigation. However, a legal process in accordance with the Iraqi law was carried out. At the end of the day, a court of law sentenced those people to death. The head of state, by the constitution, is the only person who can sign the death sentence, which he did. That doesn't make him a person who is responsible for that. And if I'm wrong on this one and he is responsible, then how can one justify the execution of the judge when the judge was in fact doing his duty? Because you cannot have it, the cake and eat it. Either the judge was a criminal, and therefore the head of state wasn't because he was applying the law, or the head of state was a criminal and the judge wasn't because he was applying the law. This is in terms of the issue. When one looks at the procedures themselves, this is the first trial ever in the world that people were sentenced to death based on hearsay evidence. There wasn't one single witness during that trial who actually saw anything with his own eyes or knew anything with his first-hand knowledge. Everybody heard of somebody from somebody or something. We had the witnesses, most of them were children, were young people at the time. They were trying to recall events, which is, I think it is something like, 25 years old or whatever it is. So it was a travesty of justice, like there is nothing like that. No legal authority, whether it's human rights organizations or legal authorities, including the United Nations, who have in fact, at the end of the day, said that it was an acceptable trial. Everybody tried to find some justification. The Iraqi judges are not experienced, they didn't know, there were problems here, there, it's a new system, etc., etc. But it doesn't matter who the person was hanged. A person, a human being, was put to death through a wrong process. So this took quite a bit of time from my work, aside from especially that I've lost all the other work on the other side. There were the other issues which again transpired after the 2003, and that is what's called the oil for food, the biggest myth that has been created by the United States of America, the Congress inquiry, which then steamrolled the United Nations into doing it. The United Nations and the Congress must have spent, I estimate, something like $150 million. They claim they were chasing money, and the money that they were chasing are in tens of thousands of dollars, and none of them was proven to be correct. But there was a demonization exercise. One of our members of parliament here, a politician, is well known to many people. His name is George Galloway. And I have actual evidence that the British government, the American government, and the United Nations have tried to bribe people in Iraq, bribe politicians, detainees. One of the people was Tariq Aziz. I know this for certain. He was offered amnesty, help, etc., etc., if he just says that he did give George Galloway something. That, it doesn't matter again, George Galloway is just a person. But again, I'm talking about the principle, about the system. When the international community and the civilized world sinks to the level of trying to bribe a person who is effectively on death row, to bargain with him, just to give evidence against somebody else so that they get their revenge. And we've all seen what happened in the Congress itself when George was cross-examined by the Congress. I think, I'm not an expert on the US system, but I don't think there has ever been a case whereby the House was actually discredited by somebody giving evidence before them, as this man did. Even senior guys from Rumsfeld to Condoleezza Rice, when they go to Congress, they are concerned because they are going to be squashed and pushed and kicked and what have you. It is George Galloway as a person, and he's a bloody foreigner according to American system. He has given them a bloody nose, to the extent that it is, again, it shows how the free world operates. That day that he gave evidence, he was all over the news, and I am absolutely certain that within 24 hours, that item of news was killed absolutely. If you would have tried to find anything about it in the mainstream media, 24 hours later, it is gone. Because this is how the manipulation of the media. I don't want to sound like a communist. I'm not a communist. But totalitarian regimes do not have to be run by military guys. You can run it in every way. In our British politics, we had Mrs. Thatcher, one of the prime ministers, one of the important prime ministers we had here. She brought the British politics to disrepute to the extent that, in fact, it took the British to go out in the street and throw stones and Molotov cocktails and have fights with the police to change the policy. Because actually she has steamrollered the system. Because if you know how you play the game, you can make anything. You can make the judges give the wrong judgment. You can make religious men give you the wrong edict. You can have people of morality and ethics, if you put them under enough pressure, they will yield. When you play the game right, you can change the world.